output again. All right, so as we said, CE is going to play twice again. That's going to be very interesting for sure because CE, you know, the current champions of China, a little bit in a slump as of late, dropped a lot more games than we thought they would. And they're going to play second today against KT. We're going to kick things off with RPG here. Very interesting team to follow as well. And then the highlight of the day is definitely the One versus CE. As you can see, here's our penultimate game of the day. The One currently the leaders of China. First place, very strong looking team. And CE, can they reclaim their place as one of the strongest teams in the region? Remains to be seen. For now, though, we're going to focus on Beyond the Game and RPG. Ladies and gentlemen, for RPG, everything's on the line right now. They really need those points if they want to get away from those relegation places where they have to potentially drop down to the Crucible once again.
But Kendrick, you talked about the words reinvigorated.
Yes, sir.
And right now, there are two teams who look reinvigorated after an incredibly rushed start, and that is the A team, who we'll see playing later. Even with their substitute, they've actually started looking quite good. And this team, RPG, since the return of Loktar and a little bit of hero shuffling, depending on who is playing what. And Loktar's gone, never mind. But no, Rogue still has put on quite some good performances, but they had been using Loktar for the last week, and it looks like he has had to disappear again. So we are seeing the return of Wrong, who has played some very solid heroes throughout their time.
I was actually, but there we see Loktar. That's him in the booth right there. So we might see
be a display issue then?
Yeah, I think it was a display issue. Let's see who's missing. So that's MJ. We can't really see the guy on the very left.
I think that's Chicken on the left.
I think that's C on the very left. So yeah, I think it's Wrong once again, getting benched. But yeah, okay, that's already interesting because I was gonna say if they changed Loktar again for Wrong, I could only explain this with scheduling issues in Loktar's real life because we all know that he's been very busy with university in the past.
Perhaps he had a week off university and just showed up just to help.
But already that would have been a big blow for them because, as you said, they look like a completely different team with one of the best assassins in the league, Loktar, reinforcing the roster. And they're going to need all that strength they can muster here against BTG, a team that has looked so strong all season long compared to the previous results.
Oh yes, BTG currently only 2 points behind CE, the previous champions, with the exact same amount of games played. So BTG, they're going to be looking to grab some points here. Their roster has remained stable this entire season, ever since the roster shuffling of the start of the season. And we have here Dancing, assassin player extraordinaire. Probably the hardest, like we talk about good Hanzos, there's a lot of them because he's just a very good hero in general. But Dancing is, I would describe as the hardest one to kill.
Yeah.
He very much lives up to his name. His micro and dodging abilities on those skill shots and just massive use of the walls is second to none.
Yeah, I would totally agree. Dancing, definitely a player that has improved so much over the last few years, especially since the BTG team came out swinging this season. Like, there's players like LLK who've always looked amazing, right? But Dancing really stepped it up to the next level. Next to, I would say, Druid. So this triangle of good players is really making all the difference there for RPG, for Beyond the Game. But RPG, what can they bring to the battlefield today to basically keep Beyond the Game from winning? Look at that, the recent match history. RPG with a lot of momentum after losing so many games over and over again. They came out swinging last week and even defeated Team Nut in a clean 2-0, which nobody thought was actually possible.
Their first 2-0. Team Nut, like you said, they were ahead. They still have almost double RPG's points to Team Nut. But RPG coming out with that victory is such a big deal for them. But of course, the last time these two teams played against each other, it was actually a 1-1. It's one of the few 1-1s RPG have been able to sneak away. And that was pre-Loktar. That if we do see Loktar here and it was a display issue, then there's a chance they could maybe get another 1-1. If it's wrong, well, they've already shown they can do it.
And I'm not sure, like, I'm not sure if my mind or my memory cheated on me there, but we could actually see Wrong still in there. Like, the player that sat next to to Lockdown. We couldn't really see it that well because the picture was rather distant, rather far away.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's in the realm of the impossible that Sa is not playing this week, because I'm not sure if he got a haircut or if it was wrong after all. And if you had wrong in there plus Locktar, that would be insane.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. If you traded out Sa and put Chicken or like
on the second range.
Yeah. That's
and we talked about this
acceptable.
last week, right? Rung also played a Dahake, he played the Zeratul, so he could fit into this melee assassin, melee flex gap that Sa would leave.
Chicken's still a little bit better on terms of range, in terms of melee assassins. I still think he's more used to that role, but he's still okay on the ranged as well. So it is interesting. The fact that they have, however, locked in Genji first makes me very agree with you that there's a good chance this is Locktar.
Yeah. And basically want to see, like, if they switch players now and zoom in, you know, with those webcams that you guys can see there, I think we could definitely confirm. But one of the players got a new haircut, you know, both are wearing glasses, so let's see and wait until we get the ultimate confirmation here. For now, though, that is C, of course, the tank player. Definitely a strong Stitches player. Just wanted to highlight that.
Oh, yes.
Although I'm pretty sure we're not going to see it here on Battlefield of Eternity. That's not a traditional Stitches map. If it goes to a game 2 and we end up going for a really good Stitches map like Towers of Doom, for example, that could always be a possibility.
So we're starting with Muradin, another hero that C can play very effectively, assuming he doesn't overextend. Muradin is the one hero you can sort of overextend on and be fine, but overall, it's still a solid hero, especially against a Yrel. Yrel, very much an oppressive solo laner, but when she joins the team fights, adds a lot of quick knockback CC. This is pretty good because Muradin forces the front line to be further forward than it would normally be outside of if you have a Johanna. So having that Muradin, for example, means that Yrel is going to have a little bit more of a tougher time moving into the backline.
Yeah, and always there's this threat of Muradin interrupting her channels in a very, you know, exclusive manner. We could maybe see exotic talent picks like the Skullcracker at level 7, similar to when Muradins used to fight Sonya's all the time, right? Back in the day when Sonya was a top-tier pick, you could always sometimes see Muradins go for Skullcracker to interrupt the spinning. So yeah, let's see what the Muradin has in store for us this time around. Already we can say that playing on BOE with the Genji first pick could always sort of mess with their opponent's minds, right? You're never sure whether the Genji is going to go for some early fountain backdooring, whether it's in the middle, in the top lane, we've actually seen it as well. So that's already such a cool factor for RPG, the X factor, if you will, that Beyond the Game is going to have to be on the lookout for.
And while me, Kendrick, and the viewers have had the joy of playing with the triple ban system in Hero League already, this week of HGC at least is not going to have the triple bans. So I have not personally been told when the triple bans are, but I'm seeing some hints in the chat that it might be Friday, but I have not seen that confirmed personally. But who knows, maybe there is information out there.
At the very latest, we can say that it's definitely going to be there for both the Western and the Eastern Clash. So there we're definitely going to see the updates, the reworks on Jimmy and Asmodan. We're going to have the triple ban system. It's going to be a completely new esports experience, basically, because a lot of the pro players around the globe, basically, they said, you know, it feels like an entirely different game from a drafting point of view, from how certain picks can then be evaluated and translated into the actual gameplay. So I'm already looking forward to seeing the triple ban in effect.
So apparently it is both EU and NA said next week on stream, so I assume we're going to be getting the same.
Should be for the playoffs then in China, which is awesome.
That's going to be very cool indeed. Speaking of very cool, a Tyrael and Alex Straza. Like you said, I believe we are on the patch, because unfortunately we don't read Chinese, the patch pre the triple bans, so we don't have the Reyna and the Asmodan reworks, as you did say. So this is also pre the Alex Straza buffs. Where,
dude, otherwise, even though it's China, Jimmy would have been either banned or picked already.
Probably. You are almost certainly correct. And also, I would have thought Alex Straza might actually be a little higher, because Lifebinder, new Lifebinder is really good.
Oh my goodness, I had a team league game with Cho'Gall and Alex Straza the other day, and there we go, ladies and gentlemen. The Artanis is deployed to the battleground, and
so that makes me think it might be Chicken playing the melee.
Yeah, could be. Let's see. Let's wait until we have the final roster confirmed for RPG here, because
gonna have to find out in game.
That is, I'm not sure. Like, Sa, I think, has played the Genji in the past, but he didn't really look that good on the Genji like other players did. Lockdown, on the other hand, could play both Genji or Li Ming.
Very true. He does like Li Ming. It's not one of his most played heroes. Usually he used to leave the mages, at least some of them, over to Infinity back in the day. Used to, especially the Chromies. Lockdown sort of snuck on the Chromie every now and again when it was like Chromie with another mage. But Infinity used to be the main mage player.
All right, so only one pick left available for Beyond the Game. Their team is relatively low on crowd control. I do want to highlight this. Like Tyrael, although he's a good protective tank, right? Providing shields to nearby allies and having a little bit of a slow engage, he doesn't have the hard lockdown like other heroes have. The warriors, I should say. No stuns, no roots, unless he goes for the judgment, which probably won't be the case here. So that is going to be a dream scenario almost for Artanis, because the less slows, stuns, roots, or even blinds the enemy team has, the more he's going to be able to constantly attack and get his shields in.
Outside of wave clear, BTG's comp looks absolutely insane if this was like a Battlefield of Eternity, a Infernal Shrine style draft.
Yes.
The amount of area control they have, Earthquake, Dragon Queen, Sanctification, it's fantastic. The little bit of extra melee they've added from Thrall, who can of course benefit from the Sanctification really well, is absolutely crazy. But their race potential is sort of very much committed to Hanzo, whereas RPG, they have Artanis and Li Ming, who maybe together can make a single Hanzo worth of damage in terms of Immortal Race. But overall, in terms of actually a better draft for the map, I think RPG came out. In terms of a very synergistic draft, if BTG can force RPG to stay in one area for a certain amount of time to fight, BTG have come out on top.
I would definitely agree with you.
It's harder to pull off.
The one interesting thing is going to be the Artanis here, I feel like. RPG has good racing, no doubt, if Artanis goes for the amateur opponent at level 1, which gives him more damage against PvE targets, the Immortal included. And also, after level 10, I feel, if he goes for a Suppression Pulse, you can actually drop it onto your own Immortal, so you blind all the enemies nearby, and that can actually cripple even the combat performance of a Hanzo, right? Because you deny him the faster cooldown on his scatter shots. So those could all be like these fine little details that, if added together, can ultimately make a big difference.
I would agree. So, like I said, BTG's composition is a little bit harder to pull off. It needs to force a fight in a certain area. RPG, they need to be prepared to disengage, which it goes against a lot of the playstyle of RPG, which gives me a little bit of a little bit of concern for them. If they could disengage well from the Sank, Earthquake, Dragon Queens, then they've just got huge abilities and they can go in and probably win every fight with this double reset comp without too many difficulties.
Yeah.
But I don't think they will disengage. The RPG are going to have to change their playstyle in order to completely shut down the BTG comp. If they can do it effectively, this should be a home run for RPG. If not, BTG might be able to take this home.
And here we go, ladies and gentlemen. RPG against BTG. Game number 1 on Battlefield of Eternity. Let's do this and kick things off today here on this Monday. So, on the left-hand side, we get to see the team that is coming in as the underdog against Beyond the Game. It is RPG with Chicken on that Artanis. MJ is playing on Malfurion. Sa is on that Li Ming. C is playing the Muradin. And Wrong apparently on the Genji, which I still think is wrong.
It is Loktar in terms of the player name in the actual game, so potentially a bit of a mistake here. But on the right-hand side, it is Beyond the Game of 619 on Tyrael, LLK on Thrall, Druid on the Alexstrasza, Dancing on Hanzo, of course, and 3 is bringing out the Urel.
All right, and the man with a haircut was indeed Sa. Looked a little bit like Wrong there because both are wearing glasses. So for now, we know the final roster of RPG. Nothing changed compared to the previous weeks. So maybe that's a good news. Maybe that's some good information for you guys out there, for the RPG fans out there, because as you guys saw before the game started, they were able to overcome Team Nut last week and get their first win of the season in. So let's see how much they can basically keep this momentum and put Beyond the Game a little bit under pressure. We see Thrall, by the way, once again going for Crash Lightning. Still seems to be a thing that Chinese teams like to do, especially on maps like Volskaya or Battlefield of Eternity, where there's a lot of grouping, where there's a lot of skirmishing near the objective.
We're also seeing, by the way, Force Armor coming in for Li Ming. This is a very low glow map unless you are winning the objective. They're against a Hanzo. They're not going to take that risk. It can take some damage, but it's able to back up. But yeah, being able to get at least a little bit of protection and have to rely on the Fountains and Malfurions Innovate to do your mana regen for you instead of Astral Communion or, of course, that extra globe talent that you can get at level 1. So instead, protection is the name of the game, which against Crash Lightning makes sense.
Yeah, definitely true. So both teams basically mirroring each other's movements on the map, taking the Impaler camps to the side. Really cool rotation we see here, by the way, by RPG. So they really used the information they had on vision on the enemy team and realized, you know what, we don't see where the 4-man stack is at, but we know for sure they're not rotating. So they're very likely going to do this top mercenary camp. So why don't we just take the one on the bottom and avoid fighting against Thrall this way? Because if they had defended in the top lane against this mercenary camp, for example, Thrall could have had a couple more moments to actually find connections on his Crash Lightning. So that being said, though, both teams pretty equal. Now we see 3, though, getting surrounded by 3 enemy heroes, but just barely makes it out alive. Yrel, man, we know how tanky that hero can be.
Avenging Wrath, good ability as well for mobility and engage potential, so nice to see here. Salvation is the talent of choice for Tyrael, very much going for that solo frontline style. Doesn't want to keep his Hanzo with him, so is going for the ability that lets him absorb the most amount of damage instead of protecting that backline, and it's going to try and protect the backline by being the most aggressive frontline. As level 4 is hit for both teams, I would hope we would see Shield Surge for Artanis, and we do, along with the amateur opponent. This is the standard build for an Artanis.
Exactly. Very rarely do we see the pairing talent, for example, on Artanis on this very battleground. Other battlegrounds, we don't actually get to see Artanis in the first place, but there it could be more of a choice, especially if you had heroes like Raynor now, after the patch, of course, in the enemy team's ranks. Heroes like Thrall even would make a lot of sense as well, but both teams are now trying to race each other out. See, going in with a maneuver to slow down the advance, slowing the attack speed of Thrall, and Hanzo definitely makes a lot of sense, as long as he doesn't die, which is nice. And you can actually see how close that was. 10,000 to 8.8k on the Immortal. I think Beyond the Game is definitely going to try to defend theirs for now. So right now, RPG, they need to spread out. They need to make sure that they're not clumped too much. Use the superior range of Li Ming's poking. Use Artanis every now and then, who basically took care of the mercenary camp in the top lane and put Druid under a lot of pressure.
But RPG have done a big wraparound. The idea for this is to either punish Dancing, racing the Immortal, or see if they can wrap around and kill someone. However, the Dragon Queen has been popped, which is going to force the disengage, at least for the moment. This gives Hanzo a bit of time. He now has his PvE damage, not fully stacked on simple geometry, but the extra damage to PvE is going to be a pain. So C is going to move forward alone, at least for the time being. Nice little juke there, wrapping around Dancing, forcing him to disengage.
Can RPG do it?
One from BTG comes in. RPG race the other side, and RPG take the Immortal.
This was actually such a nice maneuver by C here on that Muradin. He basically tried to keep everybody busy, especially the Hanzo, for as long as possible. Oh, never mind. Loktar going in here on that Genji. Very feisty. But that is, once again, the beauty for RPG of the team comp that BTG has here, right? Very little CC. So if a Genji goes in deep with that Swift Strike, for example, if that Muradin tries to go for these stalling maneuvers, there's very little they can do to actually punish those moves, those heroes. So right now, RPG, they have the momentum, they have the early game advantage. Let's see what they can make with it.
Arcane Orb does land on Hanzo, and as such, it actually prevents it actually neutralizes a fair amount of the healing from the abundance of the Alex Straza here. Front wall and fountain taking down, a little bit of damage done to the fort overall. But yeah, this is really good, and you can see the value of Li Ming versus a composition that is forced to group up by BTG. Of course, a lot of this damage will end up being negated by Sanctification later on, but if Li Ming can time directly when the Sanctification ends, then suddenly we're going to start seeing the health bars of BTG drop very low after they've managed to lock up into a certain position.
Right now, we also see that Thrall is sitting at 7 stacks for the Crash Lightning, which is okay, but you definitely want to have it higher at this point. But RPG is just playing it smart, you know? They're trying to avoid the enemy team when it's safe to do so. They're trying to use the superior range of Sa on the Li Ming to basically chip down BTG's Immortal all the time. The roots are coming through here. Broccoli's helping with the defense. But this is a pretty mighty push. 4 people committed by Beyond the Game, supported by Impalers. They take down 2 towers as well, getting a little bit of counter experience. But RPG, of course, has done their own damage, you know, towards the enemy buildings with that with that Immortal earlier.
And Sa is actually doing a really good job here. He's not focusing the heroes at all. He's trying to focus the minions, remove anything that's protecting the heroes. But unfortunately, the arcane missile's not effective at clearing minions, so he is going to be able to take them down. So finally, the shot's going to start onto the heroes, mostly focusing LLK. 619, though, with the shields, will help the team push through the fort. However, bot went down as well. RPG trading 1 for 1, but the difference is they have managed to catch 3 out of position. Nice avenging wrap, but Muradin on the chase. Stormbolt is missed, and the Divine Steed 3 is out of there.
And that's, ladies and gentlemen, why Divine Steed is such a strong talent. And I'm really glad, Tetra, that finally Chinese Erail players are picking it up. I think it's the first or second time we see the talent picked in China. Up to this point, there had always been, you know, a preference of going for the E builds, sometimes going for the hammer speed at level 7 as well. But finally, the Divine Steel showing why it is so useful to get away from an enemy onslaught. But already you can see how Beyond the Game was too late to the party actually here to defend their own Immortal. They've taken so much damage. Now let's see and watch Hanzo's movement here. Is he trying to once again do the solo poke, or is he going to stay with the team more in order to defend here? Li Ming's poke over the wall, so good by Sa.
Hanzo wants to poke, but he's
getting zoned out completely.
Zoning him out, like you said. We're seeing the halftime show being achieved by RPG here, and now they're in the defensive position. Now both teams have really good poke. Hanzo with that scatter arrow, Li Ming with those consistent poke AP abilities. Oh, Locktar is in danger here. 3 gets a lovely jump, but Locktar finds an easy wall and is able to leap to freedom. C's going to have to wrap around. RPG very split here. And the difference is, though, they're split because they're defending.
Yeah.
They're trying to defend top lane with that Artanis to give themselves 4 XP, which will race them towards level 10, which currently BTG have the experience lead for. Halfway point on the Immortal of RPG. Artanis is forced to return here. Neither of these teams will hit level 10, probably by the time this Immortal is acquired, as they move on to C to 3 to see if they can grab him, but Avenging Grab once again able to disengage.
This constant back and forth is the dream scenario for LLK on that Thrall. He's getting so many Crash Lightning stacks up to this point. Yeah. The Dragon Queen was used as well, so RPG needs to be very careful.
The Immortal's dropping low. Tyrael once again throws in the sword. Artanis goes in super deep chicken. Gets the shield surge, but it's not enough. And they managed to get a huge amount of damage onto 3. The counter kill is achieved. 619 also dropping low. Locktar's in the back line. The leaving damage is insane here. Picks up 1, picks up 2. Looking for the 3rd, and gonna maybe find it. Baby fight it.
He's gonna get it,
right? He's
Cleansing
out of mana. Here comes the Cleansing Flame. Stormbolt, full damage output, and they get the 4th kill. Alexstrasza, Cleansing Flames to freedom. But the Immortal and the kills will be picked up by RPG.
And it was in the nick of time as well, Tetra. If you take a look at the Immortal health of RPG, it's so close. But here, once again, we see the fight break out here. Dragon Queen used very early. So many stacks as well. And Chicken with the relentless assault into the backline makes sure that the stuns from the Immortal seal the deal and pave the way with that first reset on Li Ming. Sa having a wonderful time there, charging and chasing from kill to kill and saving MJ here on the Malfurion. Beautifully done by RPG. If they have a fountain available in the bottom lane, which I think they should have, they should be in a really good position to actually continue this push. But, you know, teleport back seems to be the go-to plan here. Looks like they didn't have enough healing left there. So ultimately, this Punisher, this Immortal, is not really doing a whole lot. However, the distraction is perfect, and it's still going to get a little bit of extra damage done on the top 4.
Whittling it down, time after time. They will be able to get this if they keep up the work, but these Immortals have been getting weaker and weaker each time, Kendrick, because BTG are putting up a better and better fight. We're not seeing the Earthquake this time. We're seeing the Sundering, and I love this versus Artanis. The more you can stop him autoing, and the more you can stop him burning those abilities, the better. So adding any kind of stun is always welcome over a slow.
It's kind of like Thrall and Artanis are each other's worst enemy right now, because Artanis on the flip side has suppression pulls, right? And that being deployed, you can shut down Thrall's auto attacks, which with the Wind Fury are crucial at actually getting those Frostwolf stacks up, right? So you get the self-healing, so you get the cooldown proc from his level 4 talent. Let's see if the swap goes in. Chicken, no. Mrs. Tyrael just by an inch here. Huge damage still coming on onto 619. Not forced to use the Sanctification right now, but they have to disengage. It's a huge wave coming in there, actually, Tetra. Double mercenary pressure plus the entire team of RPG trying to make a move.
I actually really thought that Genji might X-Strike that and just try and go for the kill, but Lockdown showing some restraint here. In comes the Avenging Wrap, here comes the dive. Twilight Dream, no sanctification for you, sir! As the Sundering comes out, there's the counter kill onto Lee Mig. X-Strike, we all use his escape tools. Chicken is being dropped down low, focusing on to LOK, trying to finish him off. There's the dash by Genji, picks up LOK, but Artanis goes down as well. Dragon Queen gonna force a disengage out of RPG, but can they get out? Muradin over the wall. Loktar messes up his Swift Strike at least a little bit, but he's still able to get out. It's a 2 for 2, Kendrick.
Huge deflect there by Loktar. As you said, he messed up the Swift Strike there a little bit, but he deflected most of Hanzo's damage. And in those tight and narrow corridors that we just saw in Battlefield of Eternity, a well-placed scatter shot is going to be the downfall of any fleeing enemy here, even if it's Genji. So there we go. Ultimately, nothing of significance has happened here. Both teams were able to defend their tower gates there for the keeps. But I think RPG is going to be a little bit quicker once again when it comes to rallying and regrouping near to the enemy immortal.
That Twilight Dream was so clutch. It prevented 3 from using his Twilight Defender, which allowed them to... sorry, Twilight Defender, Ardent Defender. It was definitely not a Twilight Defender because he died to it. But as we see the race, once again, RPG get the halfway point a little bit quicker because they got the head start in terms of positioning. Now they're going to move to an aggressive position, trying to zone out BTG to give themselves that race advantage. Genji even coming in with the Swift Strike for the damage. Chicken getting focused down. We're going to see BTG just move in here. Dragon Arrow came out, not enough for the lockdown, but Artanis still in trouble. The suppression pulse is huge, though. Such a good tool to allow Chicken to back out and get his positioning into preferable again. Genji dives very deep. X-Strike hits pretty much everyone, but they're still having to back up. The shield is good. Twilight Dream forces another disengage from BTG. C walks into the boss stun. He goes down. Sundering on Sar as well. He backs out. MJ is completely isolated. He goes down, but he's going to be a distraction. The rest of the team has dived in for the Immortal. They're going to race it down, and they will get it, but they lost so many members in the process.
Yeah. And also, look at the top lane. Double mercenaries have been pushing the entire time. If Loktar ends up falling as well, if Chicken ends up falling, this is a disaster for RPG. But true, yes, you know, they got the Immortal, but look at that. The way has always been paved here for BTG with that double mercenary camp. The top keep is going to fall. This might be a core call if they actually want to play this super greedy.
C is back alive. Sar is alive, but he's very low on mana. He's popped a fountain in the mid lane. The joy of having those. Yeah. Unfortunately, Genji's on the other team, but he also didn't go for mid. This fort will finally fall, because this time there's actually no one defending it except for Thrall. So they will finally get this. But they lost a keep for that. Yeah. They lost the XP lead. They lost a keep. RPG giving lives unnecessarily here for a lead that they were never going to get in this scenario.
It all started with C on the Muradin on the side of RPG actually getting caught by that Immortal stun, right? If he stays safer there, if he doesn't end up falling, I think they can maybe just recover and they can just fall back, regroup later, send Artanis into that top lane, for example, buy a little bit of time in the defense, you know, so they won't lose the Immortal too quickly to a Hanzo, and then save their keep. But as it turned out, with Muradin falling, it was beyond the game just completely going ham onto the backline of RPG. You can see Tyrael and you can see Thrall there mercilessly chasing down the Malfurion next there as well. Artanis, once he's committed, he ends up falling there as well. So although RPG got the objective, the real winners of this situation are beyond the game, no doubt.
Completely agree. Beyond the game. Now with an XP lead, they find Tyrael here as he dives forward, just completely face checks the bush. But he's fine. He's Tyrael. Gets an abundance heal and then teleports over the wall for safety. He's gone for Holy Ground, by the way. Going for that little bit of extra sustain, extra zoning potential on this map. There's not that many small choke points, but there's enough to gain value.
And if it lands at the right location, you can actually prevent people from escaping the Immortal, or potentially getting stunned out or getting collapsed on by your teammates. So I'm actually liking this choice quite a bit, especially when you're ahead with that level 16 now. You want to force a fight. And what better way of forcing a fight there is actually denying the enemy team's flight paths, right? So you just zone them in, you lock them in quite literally, and with the cooldown reduction now, or is it actually, no, it's not the cooldown reduction, it's the Burning Halo still at level 16. So additional AoE damage on Tyrael, both on his body and the Eldruin. So definitely a good tool to maybe burst down squishy targets like Malfurion, Li Ming, Genji a little bit quicker.
We're also seeing the Phase Bulwark coming in from Artanis. 50 spell armor for 4 seconds. when his shield activates. Against this composition, that's huge, especially seeing as how much damage Chicken has been taking. He might just want to drop Suppression Pulse early here, just straight onto that Immortal. He's cleaned up the mercenaries, they're going to begin the race, but the race, the halfway point, going to be easily met by BTG.
Yeah, now of course those catapults, right, that are coming in through the top lane, Artanis is always going to be forced to deal with those. 2 or 3 of those catapults on the core and you're going to have a massive problem. Your cores are going to take so much damage. Now, Artanis on the flip side though needs to be there in time to help his team defend this Immortal. Muradin with a big flank.
Good wraparound. In comes Genji. Twilight Dream is pretty good, but Sanctification blocks at least a couple of them. They're moving forward, trying to go onto Yarel, who immediately drops the other defender, keeping herself alive. C forced to back up. Chicken is diving deep and dropping some crazy damage, but his shield cooldown still too high here, as Loktar also being focused down. Cleansing Flame for the kill right as he dashes.
Yeah.
Animation even went off there, and the Dragon Flank getting the great wind buff. It completely isolates 2 heroes, and C, the only survivor. BTG finally win themselves an Immortal just in time. They're going to be able to push in via the bot lane. They're trying to focus on C here. C buying time. No, they're going to try and go for core. You're right.
Yeah. They're trying to go for the core, right? I was a little worried that they wasted so much time chasing down the Muradin when they wanted to make that core call, but of course it's the exact right thing to do here, right? Instead of going for the Immortal, which probably wouldn't have even gotten a keep because that fort in the bottom lane is still up, they go for the core, but look at those low death timers. Genji's going to be back in 2. I don't think this is a guaranteed core.
The core's down to 50%. Druid going to be focused down. C's positioning just a little bit earlier was perfect, but the core still goes down. Even with C using his body to stop the catapults moving forward and zoning out the damage dealers, it's still BTG going to take game number 1.
So definitely the right call at the right time here. You saw how healthy that bottom lane of RPG still was, right? There was a fort still standing. There was a keep still standing. So them saying, you know what? We just had a clean team wipe there, with the exception of Muradin, of course. Let's go for the core. Why don't we just force it out? Our core damage is really good with Hanzo attacking, for example, with the Tyrael. Also, you know, providing so much protection. So the core splash damage won't hurt your team as much. The Alexstrasza still in a healthy condition. When your support is in good shape, you can always have that one argument to actually go for the core call. We see many teams who lose the support and then fail to actually, you know, tank it all through. But as it is, beyond the game from start to finish, with a clean game, especially in that late game, I think they've really capitalized the individual mistakes by RPG so well that they rightfully won this game.
And that's all it really came down to. Individual mistakes, I think. RPG, I think they played the early game way better than BTG. Even against a Hanzo, they played the game better. Muradin's positioning was pretty gold for the majority of the game. Absolutely with some great flanks, but he missed a couple Storm Bolts, which weren't really down to dodging, I'm going to have to say. I apologize to C for that, but it is what I saw. And of course, that one positioning moving blindly into the bush. And I'm pretty sure you could see where the Immortal Studs are going to come out, and he still had enough time to dwarf toss back if he did want to, but instead he gets himself locked down and killed. That forced his team to make a very unfavorable trade just to try and get some damage control in that I don't also feel was necessary. I don't know. It's individual mistakes, like we said.
And the thing is also, if you have a hero like Artanis in your ranks, like Chicken played pretty well for the most part.
Yeah.
At some point, though, you could see that in the late game, especially, when an Artanis is committed, he can't get out anymore. He doesn't have these disengaging tools that other warriors have, like no dashes, no blinks, no jumps, for example. So it was pretty easy then for Beyond the Game to capitalize on this positioning and then just punish the Artanis right at the get-go. You could really see how he wasn't really that threatening factor anymore. He barely had any major swaps coming out because Beyond the Game played it so well. And you could really see also in the late game how the Alexstrasza Dragon Queen got so much value. Combine that with the Tyrael shields, and it was so hard for RPG to actually kill anyone in that team.
Completely true, but they were able to take a pretty good structure advantage early on, but it was everything else, even with all the structure advantages that RPG were able to take earlier on. If you looked at the XP throughout that game, BTG were either even or ahead the entire game. And a lot of that was due to that top fort not going down so many times. Because BTG, they were able to get a great amount of race, really lowering that Immortal Shield. And then their Immortal Burst potential, that Immortal Race potential, still works when the Immortal is already pushing. It's still good, so it allowed them to clean it up very quickly.
And that is the beauty of Hanzo, quite frankly, I think, for Beyond the Game. Not only is he a great racer when it comes to chipping down the Immortals when they're neutral, but also when they're pushing against you, if you consistently land your scatter shots onto the Immortal, you're going to be able to dispose of that thing so quickly, and that's exactly what they did. That's why that top 4 lived for so long. That's why they were able to retaliate so nicely all the time as well. And you could see it a few times in that game, actually, how Beyond the Game just had better mercenary timing, right? That one time where the double merc camp pushed top and cleared so much of the way for the keep to be taken out later was huge. And Beyond the Game was just more patient with those mercenaries. RPG picked them whenever they were ready, and Beyond the Game waited until they could get maximum value from it during that Immortal fight.
BTG taking us to the Dragon Shire.